I sped down the snow-covered slope, the cold air whipping against my face, and the sheer thrill of speed pumping adrenaline through my veins. The snow sparkled under the bright sun, creating a dazzling display of light that danced around me. Every turn, every rush of wind, every second spent hurtling down the mountain made me feel alive and free. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the pinnacle of my trip to the ski resort. Nothing else mattered but the sheer exhilaration of the descent. As I carved through the pristine snow, I couldn't help but smile. The world around me was a blur of white and blue, the mountains standing tall and majestic, their peaks piercing the clear sky. The crispness of the winter air filled my lungs, and for a fleeting moment I felt invincible. But then, in an instant, everything changed. One moment, I was in perfect harmony with the mountain, and the next, I was tumbling uncontrollably. My ski caught on an unexpected patch of ice, sending me sprawling. The world spun around me, a chaotic whirl of snow and sky, and I felt a sharp, searing pain shoot through my leg. I tried to catch myself, to regain control, but it was too late. My body hit the ground with a sickening thud, and I slid to a stop, gasping for breath. The pain was intense, a burning sensation that radiated from my ankle up through my leg. I lay there in the snow, panting, my heart pounding in my chest. I tried to move, but the pain was overwhelming. Panic began to set in as I realized the severity of my injury. I was alone on the slope, unable to move, and the sharp pain in my leg told me that this was no minor fall. Gritting my teeth, I looked around for help, but the slope was deserted. I tried to call out, but my voice was weak, barely more than a whisper. Desperation and fear welled up inside me. I needed help, and I needed it fast. Just as I was beginning to lose hope, I saw a figure skiing towards me. Relief washed over me as the person approached, their bright jacket a beacon of hope against the white landscape. It was a ski instructor, his face filled with concern as he knelt beside me. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice steady and reassuring. "I think I've hurt my leg," I managed to say, my voice trembling with pain. He quickly assessed my injury, his hands gentle but efficient. "It looks like you've got a serious sprain, maybe even a fracture. We need to get you to the clinic." As he signaled for help, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. The thrill of the slope had turned into a nightmare, and now I was at the mercy of this kind stranger. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would change my life in ways I couldn't yet imagine. He reached for his radio and spoke in clear, concise terms, explaining the situation and our location. The efficiency and calmness in his voice were a stark contrast to the chaos I felt inside. I focused on his words and his presence and tried to block out the pain. Within minutes, the sound of snowmobiles approached. Luke stayed by my side, keeping me engaged in conversation, asking me about my skiing experience and where I was from. It was a distraction, but a welcome one, keeping my mind off the throbbing in my leg. When the rescue team arrived, they moved quickly, lifting me onto a stretcher with as little jostling as possible. Luke helped them secure me, his hands steady and reassuring. As they transported me down the slope, he stayed close, riding alongside the snowmobile, his presence a constant source of comfort. As the rescue team carefully transported me down the slope on a snowmobile, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. Gratitude for Luke's quick actions and care, and a slight embarrassment at the situation I found myself in. It was supposed to be an exhilarating day on the slopes, but now I was headed to the clinic with a painful injury. Luke rode alongside us, his presence both comforting and reassuring. Despite the pain, I managed to catch his eye and offer a weak smile. "Thank you for everything, Luke. I appreciate your help." He smiled back, his expression warm. "It's my job, Amelia. I'm just glad I was there to help." Arriving at the clinic, the medical team swiftly moved me inside and onto an examination table. Luke stayed by my side, helping to lift me gently, making sure I was as comfortable as possible. The doctor introduced herself and began a thorough examination of my leg, asking me questions about the pain and how the accident happened. Luke stood nearby, his arms crossed, watching intently. I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. His presence made everything seem a little less daunting. After a series of questions and a careful examination, the doctor looked up at me with a reassuring smile. "You've got a sprained ligament and a minor fracture, Amelia. It's going to be painful, but with proper care, you'll recover fully. We'll need to immobilize your leg and get you some pain relief." I nodded, relieved that it wasn't worse. As the medical team set to work, Luke stepped closer, his concern evident. "You're in good hands here," he said softly. "They'll take great care of you." "Thank you, Luke," I said again, my voice filled with appreciation. "I don't know what I would have done without you." He shrugged modestly. "Just doing what I could to help. I'll stick around until they've got you all set." True to his word, Luke stayed nearby, chatting with me and the medical staff, his calm demeanor helping to ease my anxiety. When the doctor finished immobilizing my leg and explained the next steps for my recovery, Luke made sure I had everything I needed. As they prepared to transfer me to a more comfortable room to rest, Luke gave me a gentle pat on the shoulder. "I'll check in on you later, Amelia. Rest up and take it easy." I smiled, feeling a sense of comfort in knowing he would be back. "Thank you, Luke. Really." As I was wheeled to the room, I couldn't help but reflect on the events of the day. What had started as a thrilling adventure had taken an unexpected turn, but in the process, I had met someone truly special. Luke's kindness and support had turned a painful experience into something bearable, and for that, I was incredibly grateful. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of our story together. The doctor had advised me to stay for a few days to rest and allow my leg to begin healing. Despite the injury, I decided to make the most of my time here. The breathtaking views of the snow-covered mountains and the peaceful atmosphere of the resort were too beautiful to leave behind just yet. Each day, I could see skiers and snowboarders gliding down the slopes from my window. The sight filled me with a bittersweet longing. But as much as I missed the thrill, I knew I needed to focus on my recovery. The clinic staff were kind and attentive, making sure I had everything I needed. But it was the frequent visits from Luke that truly lifted my spirits. True to his word, Luke checked on me regularly. He would pop in between his lessons, always bringing a smile and often a small gift, a cup of hot chocolate, a magazine, or a small bouquet of wildflowers he had picked himself. One afternoon, as we took a break from the exercises, I looked out the window at the skiers enjoying the slopes. A pang of envy hit me, but it was quickly replaced by gratitude. "Thank you, Luke. You've made this whole ordeal a lot easier to bear." He shrugged modestly, but his smile was warm. "It's the least I can do. You're doing great, Amelia. Just keep at it, and you'll be back on your feet in no time." His words filled me with hope and determination. Despite the injury, I was grateful for this unexpected twist of fate. It had brought Luke into my life, and his kindness and support had turned a challenging situation into an opportunity for growth and connection. As the days passed, I continued to improve. The pain lessened, and my leg grew stronger. Luke's visits became the highlight of my day, and our conversations deepened, ranging from lighthearted banter to more personal topics. I learned about his love for the mountains, his passion for skiing, and the peace he found in the great outdoors. In turn, I shared my dreams and fears, finding comfort in his understanding and encouragement. As the days turned into a week, my leg continued to improve, thanks in large part to Luke's unwavering support. One morning, he arrived with a bright smile and a new idea. "How about we take a walk outside today?" he suggested. "Nothing strenuous, just a gentle stroll to get some fresh air and change of scenery." I hesitated, still wary of pushing myself too hard, but Luke's enthusiasm was infectious, and the thought of leaving the confines of the clinic was enticing. "I'd like that," I said, smiling up at him. Luke helped me get ready, making sure I was bundled up against the cold. With his steady arm for support, we ventured outside. The crisp mountain air was invigorating, and I felt a surge of energy as we walked along the snow-dusted paths. We took it slow, pausing often to admire the breathtaking views. Luke's presence was reassuring, and I found myself opening up to him more with each step. "You know, this isn't exactly how I pictured my ski trip going," I said, glancing at him with a wry smile. He chuckled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "I can imagine, but sometimes the unexpected turns lead us to the best experiences." We continued our walk, the conversation flowing easily. I learned that Luke had grown up in a small town not far from the resort. He had been skiing since he was a child and had always felt a deep connection to the mountains. His love for the sport and the outdoors was evident in every word he spoke. "What about you, Amelia? What drew you to skiing?" he asked, his curiosity genuine. "I've always loved the thrill of it," I replied. "There's something about the speed, the challenge, and the beauty of the mountains that just captivates me. It's a way to escape the everyday routine and feel truly alive." Luke nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I get that. It's the same for me. There's a freedom out here that you can't find anywhere else." As we walked, Luke suggested some light exercises we could do together to help my recovery. We found a quiet spot where the snow had been cleared, and he guided me through gentle stretches and balance exercises. His patience and encouragement made the process enjoyable, and I felt a growing sense of accomplishment with each small improvement. Our walks became a daily routine, and with each passing day, I felt stronger and more confident. Luke and I grew closer, our conversations deepening as we shared our hopes, dreams, and fears. He told me about his aspirations to start his ski school one day, and I shared my love for writing and my dream of publishing a novel. One afternoon, as we sat on a bench overlooking the snowy landscape, Luke turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Amelia, I have to say, you're one of the most resilient and determined people I've met. It's been inspiring to see how you've handled this setback." I felt a warmth spread through me at his words. "Thank you, Luke. I couldn't have done it without your help. You've made this whole experience so much more bearable." He reached out and took my hand, his touch gentle but firm. "I'm glad I could be here for you, and I hope we can keep in touch, even after you're fully recovered." I looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity and kindness there. "I'd like that, Luke. I'd like that very much." As we sat there, hand in hand, I realized that this unexpected detour in my life had brought me something truly special. Luke had not only helped me heal physically, but had also touched my heart in a way I hadn't anticipated. Our bond had grown stronger with each passing day, and I looked forward to where this journey would take us next. As the days grew shorter and the evenings colder, my walks with Luke became the highlight of my recovery. The bond we had formed was undeniable, and with each passing day, I felt something deeper beginning to blossom between us. It was subtle at first, a lingering touch, a shared smile, a look that held more meaning than words could express. One evening, after a particularly beautiful sunset walk, Luke suggested we spend some time in the lodge's cozy lounge area. "They have a great fireplace," he said with a warm smile. "It's the perfect place to relax and chat." I agreed eagerly, and soon we found ourselves settled in front of a roaring fire, the warmth from the flames contrasting with the chill outside. The lounge was quiet. The only sounds were the crackling of the fire and the soft murmur of other guests enjoying the evening. Luke and I sat close, our chairs angled toward each other. The flickering light cast a golden glow on his face, highlighting the kindness in his eyes and the strength of his features. We started talking, and the conversation flowed easily, as it always did with him. "Do you ever miss the city life?" I asked, curious about how he balanced his love for the mountains with the rest of the world. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But there's something about the mountains that keeps calling me back. The peace, the beauty. It's where I feel most at home." I nodded, understanding completely. "I can see why. There's a serenity here that's hard to find anywhere else." He looked at me then, his gaze intense and searching. "What about you, Amelia? What keeps you going, even through the tough times?" I paused, considering his question. "I think it's hope," I said finally. "Hope for new experiences, new connections, and the belief that something good is always around the corner." Luke's eyes softened, and he reached out to take my hand, his touch sending a warm shiver up my spine. "I'm glad you're here, Amelia. You've brought something special into my life." I felt a blush creep up my cheeks, the sincerity in his words touching me deeply. "I feel the same way, Luke. Meeting you has been the best part of this trip." The fire crackled between us, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Our hands remained intertwined, the connection between us growing stronger with each passing moment. The air was filled with unspoken words, emotions simmering just beneath the surface. As the evening wore on, we shared stories, laughter, and dreams. The intimacy of the moment was undeniable, and I could feel the first sparks of romance igniting between us. There was a sense of inevitability, a feeling that this was meant to be. At one point, Luke leaned in closer, his eyes searching mine. "Amelia, I've wanted to tell you something." My heart raced as I looked into his eyes, feeling the intensity of the moment. What is it, Luke? He took a deep breath, his gaze unwavering. I've grown to care about you a lot, more than I ever expected. I don't want this to end when your recovery does. I felt my heart swell with emotion, the words I'd been hoping to hear. I feel the same way, Luke. This connection we have. It's special. I don't want it to end either. With a gentle smile, he leaned in, and I felt a rush of warmth as our lips met. The kiss was tender and sweet, filled with the promise of what was to come. As we pulled back, our eyes locked, and I knew that this was just the beginning of something beautiful. The fire continued to burn brightly, casting a warm glow over us. At that moment, surrounded by the cozy comfort of the lodge and the gentle embrace of the mountains, I knew that this was where I was meant to be. With Luke by the fire, starting a new chapter in my life filled with hope, love, and endless possibilities. The warmth of the fire and the closeness we shared had become a comforting routine. Each evening, Luke and I would settle into our favorite spot by the fireplace, where we'd talk for hours. Tonight felt different, though. Tonight felt like the right time to delve deeper, to truly open up to each other. As we sat down, Luke handed me a cup of hot cocoa, the steam curling up into the air. I thought we could use something warm tonight, he said with a smile. I took the cup gratefully, savoring the rich, sweet taste. This is perfect. Thanks, Luke. He settled into his chair, and we sat in a comfortable silence for a few moments, watching the flames dance. Finally, I turned to him, feeling a mix of anticipation and nervousness. Luke, can I share something with you, something personal? His eyes met mine, filled with understanding and encouragement. Of course, Amelia, I'm here to listen. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. I've always been a dreamer, I began. Ever since I was a child, I've had these big dreams of traveling the world, writing stories, and living a life full of adventure. But somewhere along the way, life got in the way. Responsibilities, work, expectations. It all started to weigh me down. Luke listened intently, his expression thoughtful. What happened? I guess I lost sight of my dreams, I admitted, feeling a pang of regret. I settled into a routine, and the excitement I once felt for life began to fade. Coming here was supposed to be a way to reignite that spark, to find myself again, and then the accident happened. I trailed off, feeling a lump in my throat. Luke reached out, his hand gently squeezing mine. I'm sorry you've had to go through that, Amelia, but I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad we met. I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. Me too, Luke. Meeting you has been the highlight of this trip. You've reminded me of what it feels like to truly live, to find joy in the little things. He nodded, his gaze never leaving mine. I understand what you mean. For me, the mountains have always been my escape, my passion. I grew up not far from here, and my parents used to bring me to this resort every winter. I fell in love with the place, the freedom it offered, the beauty of the snow-covered peaks. It became my sanctuary. I could see the passion in his eyes as he spoke, the way his face lit up with every word. That's incredible, Luke. It must be amazing to live and work in a place you love so much. It is, he said, smiling. But it's not always easy. There are challenges and moments of doubt. But every time I step out onto the slopes, I remember why I chose this life. It's where I feel most alive, most connected to the world. I nodded, understanding completely. I can see that. There's something magical about this place. It's like it has a way of healing your soul. We sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling softly beside us. The intimacy of the moment was profound, a deep connection forming between us as we shared our innermost thoughts and dreams. Amelia, Luke said softly, breaking the silence. What do you want to do when you leave here? What are your dreams now? I thought for a moment, feeling a newfound clarity. I want to write again. I want to travel, explore new places and cultures, and live my life with the same passion you have for the mountains. And I want to keep this connection we've found. His eyes softened and he smiled. I'd like that too. And I believe you can do it, Amelia. You have the strength and the spirit to make your dreams a reality. Hearing those words from Luke filled me with hope and determination. Thank you, Luke. Your belief in me means more than you know. As the evening wore on, we continued to share our stories, our fears, and our dreams. The bond between us grew stronger with each passing moment, and I knew that this was just the beginning of a beautiful journey. With Luke by my side, I felt ready to face whatever the future held, knowing that together, we could conquer anything. With each passing day, my leg grew stronger, and Luke's presence became a constant source of comfort and joy. One crisp morning, as we sipped our coffee by the fire, he suggested something new. "How would you feel about trying some other winter activities?" Luke asked, a playful glint in his eye. "Something that doesn't require too much physical effort, but is still a lot of fun." I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Like what?" He leaned back, a mischievous smile spreading across his face. "Have you ever been sledding or walked on snowshoes?" I shook my head, laughing. "I can't say I have. Sounds like it could be fun, though." "Great," he said, standing up with renewed energy. "Let's get you bundled up and we'll head out. I promise you'll love it." We spent the next few minutes getting ready, layering up against the cold. Soon enough, we were outside, the crisp mountain air invigorating. Luke led me to a gentle slope not far from the lodge, where a couple of brightly colored sleds were waiting. He handed me one and explained, "Sledding is all about having fun. You just sit on it, hold on tight, and enjoy the ride. Ready to give it a try?" I nodded, feeling a childlike excitement bubbling up. "Absolutely." We positioned our sleds at the top of the hill, and with a quick countdown, we pushed off. The sled picked up speed quickly, the wind rushing past my face as I flew down the slope. Laughter bubbled up from within me, a joyous sound that echoed in the crisp air. The thrill was different from skiing, but just as exhilarating. At the bottom of the hill, I looked over at Luke, who was grinning from ear to ear. "What did you think?" he asked. "That was amazing," I exclaimed, my cheeks flushed with excitement. "Let's do it again." We spent the next hour racing down the hill, our laughter filling the air. It was pure, unadulterated fun, and I relished every moment of it. Finally, when we were both breathless and happy, Luke suggested we try something else. "How about a snowshoe walk?" he asked, pointing to a pair of snowshoes nearby. "It's a great way to explore the snowy trails without sinking into the snow." I was eager to try. Sounds perfect. Luke helped me strap on the snowshoes, showing me how to walk in them. We set off on a well-trodden trail, the snow crunching softly beneath our feet. The scenery was breathtaking, snow-covered trees, glistening icicles, and the distant peaks standing majestically against the clear blue sky. As we walked, Luke pointed out various features of the landscape, sharing stories of his adventures and the history of the area. His passion for the mountains was infectious, and I found myself falling in love with this winter wonderland even more. "You know," I said, turning to him, "I never imagined I'd be doing something like this. It's incredible." He smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "I'm glad you're enjoying it, Amelia. There's so much beauty and joy to be found in these mountains, and I'm happy I get to share it with you." We continued our walk, the peaceful silence of the snow-covered landscape only interrupted by our occasional conversation. It was a different kind of adventure, one that allowed us to appreciate the serene beauty around us and the growing bond between us. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the snow, we made our way back to the lodge. I felt a deep sense of contentment, my heart full from the day's adventures and the companionship of someone who had become so special to me. "Thank you, Luke," I said softly as we stood by the fire, warming our hands, "for everything, for showing me these new experiences and for being here with me." He reached out and took my hand, his touch gentle and reassuring. "It's my pleasure, Amelia. I'm glad I could share this with you, and I hope there are many more adventures to come." I smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. "I hope so too, Luke. I really do." The sun was shining brightly, casting a brilliant sparkle over the snow-covered landscape. Luke and I had decided to take another snowshoe walk, this time exploring a more secluded trail he had discovered years ago. The air was crisp and fresh, filling me with a sense of vitality and excitement for the adventure ahead. As we walked, Luke pointed out interesting features of the trail, sharing stories of his past hikes and the wildlife he had encountered. His enthusiasm was infectious, and I found myself feeling more connected to him and the natural beauty around us. But as we ventured further, I became more aware of a dull ache in my leg. I tried to ignore it, not wanting to spoil our perfect day. We continued along the trail, the snow crunching softly beneath our snowshoes, the silence of the woods enveloping us in a serene embrace. Suddenly, as we navigated a particularly tricky section of the trail, I slipped on an icy patch and twisted my leg. A sharp, searing pain shot through my injured limb, causing me to cry out and stumble to the ground. The pain was intense, a reminder of my still healing injury. Luke was at my side in an instant, his face etched with concern. "Amelia, are you okay?" I winced, clutching my leg. "I think I've aggravated my injury," I admitted, trying to keep my voice steady despite the pain. His eyes filled with worry as he knelt beside me, gently examining my leg. "We need to get you back to the lodge," he said, his voice calm and reassuring. "Can you stand?" I tried to put weight on my leg, but the pain was too much. "I don't think so," I said, shaking my head. Without hesitation, Luke slipped his arms around me, helping me to my feet and supporting most of my weight. "Lean on me," he instructed. "We'll take it slow." We began the slow trek back to the lodge, Luke's arms securely around my waist, providing both physical and emotional support. Each step was painful, but his presence gave me the strength to keep going. "You're going to be okay, Amelia," he said softly, his voice a steadying force. "We'll get you back, and I'll make sure you're taken care of." Despite the pain, I felt a surge of gratitude for Luke. His unwavering support and kindness in this moment meant everything to me. As we continued our slow journey back, I couldn't help but reflect on how much he had come to mean to me. When we finally reached the lodge, Luke guided me to a chair near the fireplace and hurried to fetch a first aid kit and some ice. He returned quickly, his movements efficient and gentle as he tended to my leg. "Let's get some ice on that," he said, carefully applying a cold pack to my injury, "and we'll elevate it to reduce the swelling." I nodded, grateful for his knowledge and care. "Thank you, Luke. I don't know what I'd do without you." He smiled, his eyes warm with affection. "You don't have to do anything without me, Amelia. I'm here for you, no matter what." As the ice began to numb the pain, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. Luke stayed by my side, holding my hand and talking to me softly, distracting me from the discomfort. His presence was a balm to my soul, and I realized just how deeply I had come to care for him. "I'm sorry I ruined our day," I said, feeling a pang of guilt. He shook his head, squeezing my hand gently. "You didn't ruin anything. These things happen, and we'll get through it together. Besides, it just gives us more time to talk by the fire." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me that had nothing to do with the fire. "I guess you're right, and I do love our fireside chats." As we sat there, the flames casting a gentle glow around us, I felt a deep sense of connection and contentment. Despite the setback, I knew that with Luke by my side, I could face anything. His care and support were a testament to the strength of our bond, and I felt grateful for every moment we shared. "Thank you, Luke," I said softly, my heart full, "for everything." He leaned in and kissed my forehead, his touch gentle and reassuring. "Always, Amelia. I'm here for you, now and always." And in that moment, surrounded by the warmth of the fire and the love of a truly remarkable man, I knew that I was exactly where I was meant to be. The snow-covered landscape outside my window was stunning, but my thoughts were far from serene. After the setback on the trail, I found myself wrestling with doubts that had started to cloud my mind. The warmth and comfort of the lodge felt almost too good to be true, and I couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps what I was experiencing with Luke was merely a temporary escape from reality, a fleeting romance that would dissolve once I left the resort. I lay in bed, staring up at the ceiling, trying to silence the nagging worries that had settled in my mind. Was this connection real, or was it just a product of the picturesque setting and the circumstances we found ourselves in? I felt a pang of uncertainty, questioning whether my feelings for Luke were genuine or simply a product of the enchanting winter world we were immersed in. That evening, as I sat by the fire trying to distract myself with a book, Luke walked in. He looked at me with concern, sensing that something was off. "Hey, Amelia," he said softly. "You've been quiet today. Is everything okay?" I put down my book, taking a deep breath. I knew I couldn't keep my feelings bottled up forever. "Luke, can we talk?" His expression grew serious as he sat down beside me. "Of course. What's on your mind?" I hesitated, struggling to find the right words. I've been thinking a lot about us lately, I began slowly. And I can't help but wonder if this is all just a temporary thing. We met here, in this beautiful place, and it feels like a dream. But what happens when we go back to our normal lives? Luke's gaze softened, and he reached out, taking my hand in his. Amelia, I understand why you might be feeling this way. This place, these circumstances, everything is different from our everyday lives. I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and anxiety. Exactly. And I'm scared that once we're back to reality, things might change. I don't want to get hurt, and I don't want to lead you on if this isn't real. He took a deep breath, looking me in the eyes with a sincerity that made my heart ache. Amelia, what I feel for you is real. I know this is a unique situation, but that doesn't make our connection any less meaningful. I've been falling for you since the first time we met. It's not just about the beautiful setting or the circumstances. It's about you. I felt a tear slip down my cheek, overwhelmed by his words. But how can we be sure that this isn't just a vacation fling? What if we're not meant to be together once we're back in the real world? Luke gently wiped the tear from my face, his touch tender. I can't promise you that everything will be perfect, but I can promise you that my feelings for you are genuine. I want to see where this can go, to give us a real chance. We have something special, and I'm willing to fight for it. His words resonated deeply within me, and I realized that I was letting my fears overshadow the possibility of something wonderful. I want to believe that too, I said softly. I want to give us a chance, but I need to know that you're in this for the long haul. Luke nodded, his expression resolute. I am, Amelia. I'm committed to seeing where this can lead. I care about you deeply, and I want to build something real with you. Whether it's here or somewhere else, I'm willing to take that leap. A sense of calm began to wash over me, replacing the storm of doubts I had been feeling. I took a deep breath, feeling a newfound sense of hope and clarity. Okay, I said, my voice steady. Let's give this a real chance. Let's see where it takes us. Luke smiled, his eyes shining with affection. That's all I ask. We don't have to have all the answers right now. We just need to take it one step at a time, together. As we sat there, hand in hand, I felt a surge of warmth and certainty. Despite the uncertainties that lay ahead, I knew that with Luke by my side, I was ready to embrace whatever the future held. The doubts that had plagued me began to fade, replaced by a sense of optimism and excitement for the journey we were about to embark on together. Thank you, Luke, I said softly, for being so understanding and patient. He leaned in, kissing my forehead gently. Always, Amelia. I'm here for you, every step of the way. At that moment, surrounded by the cozy warmth of the fire and the love of someone who truly cared, I felt a deep sense of peace. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew that with Luke, I wasn't facing them alone. The final morning at the resort arrived with a quiet, serene beauty. The snow-covered mountains, bathed in the soft light of dawn, seemed to bid me farewell with their tranquil splendor. I stood by the window of my room, looking out at the landscape that had become so familiar and dear to me over the past few weeks. My leg had healed remarkably well, and I felt a mixture of accomplishment and sadness. The time had come to leave this enchanting place, and with it, the special bond I had formed with Luke. As I packed the last of my belongings, my heart was heavy with the thought of saying goodbye. Luke had asked if I wanted to meet him for one final breakfast before my departure, and I eagerly accepted. I wanted to savor every last moment we had together, to cherish the connection that had grown so strong between us. When I arrived at the lodge's cozy dining area, Luke was already there, waiting with a warm smile. The sight of him made my heart ache with both joy and sorrow. We shared a quiet breakfast, our conversation filled with reflections on our time together and plans for the future. As we finished our meal, I felt a sense of urgency. I didn't want our time together to end on a note of finality. There was so much more I wanted to say, so much more I wanted to promise. Luke, I began, my voice trembling slightly. I've been thinking a lot about us, about what comes next. Leaving here feels like the end of something wonderful, but I don't want it to be. I want us to keep this going. Luke looked at me with a mix of affection and determination. I feel the same way, Amelia. This isn't the end for us. It's just the beginning of a new chapter. We've built something special here, and I believe we can make it work, no matter where we are. I nodded, feeling a surge of hope. I want to stay in touch, to see each other as often as we can. I believe our connection is strong enough to overcome any distance. Luke took my hand in his touch warm and reassuring. Absolutely. We'll make it work. We'll find ways to visit each other, to keep the spark alive. Our love is worth fighting for. The sincerity in his voice gave me the strength I needed to face the upcoming goodbye. We had already overcome so much together, and I was confident that we could handle whatever came next. With a final lingering kiss and promises to stay in touch, we embraced, knowing that this was not a permanent farewell, but rather a transition to a new phase of our relationship. As I walked to the car, I glanced back one last time, taking in the sight of Luke standing there, watching me with a hopeful smile. The drive away from the resort was filled with mixed emotions. The beautiful landscape faded from view, but the memories of our time together remained vivid in my mind. I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the healing and connection I had experienced, and I was excited about the future we had promised each other. As I looked ahead, I knew that while the physical distance between us would be a challenge, the bond we had created was strong enough to endure. Our love had been tested in the unique environment of the resort, and it had emerged even stronger. With each mile that brought me closer to home, I felt a renewed sense of purpose and excitement. This was not an ending, but a new beginning, a chance to build on what we had started and to face the future together, no matter the obstacles. As I drove into the sunset, I couldn't help but smile, knowing that the journey ahead would be filled with both challenges and opportunities. With Luke by my side, even if only in spirit for now, I was ready to embrace whatever the future held. The final morning at the resort arrived with a quiet, serene beauty. The snow-covered mountains, bathed in the soft light of dawn, seemed to bid me farewell with their tranquil splendor. I stood by the window of my room, gazing out at the landscape that had become so familiar and dear to me over the past few weeks. The gentle crunch of snow underfoot as I walked to the window was a comforting reminder of the serenity I had come to associate with this place. My leg had healed remarkably well, and though I felt a mixture of accomplishment and sadness, I knew it was time to move on. The beauty of the mountains, the warmth of the lodge, and the connection I had formed with Luke were all things I would miss deeply. As I packed the last of my belongings, I took a moment to reflect on how much had changed since I first arrived. What had begun as an unexpected detour in my life had evolved into something profoundly meaningful. My injury, which had initially felt like a burden, had led me to Luke, a man who had shown me kindness, patience, and a new perspective on life. Luke had asked if I wanted to meet him for one final breakfast before my departure, and I eagerly accepted. I wanted to savor every last moment with him, to cherish the connection that had grown so strong between us. As I made my way to the dining area, I felt a flutter of anticipation and a pang of sadness. The lodge's cozy dining room was warm and inviting, with a crackling fire in the hearth that added a touch of comfort to the chilly morning. Luke was already there, waiting with a warm smile that made my heart ache. His presence, so familiar and reassuring, made it even harder to say goodbye. We sat across from each other, sharing a simple breakfast of fresh pastries, fruit, and hot coffee. The conversation flowed easily, as it always had. We reminisced about our time together, the walks, the conversations by the fire, and the laughter we had shared. But beneath the surface of our easy chatter lay a deeper sense of urgency, a need to make the most of our remaining time together. "Amelia," Luke said, breaking the silence that had settled between us. "I've been thinking a lot about everything we've shared. It's hard to believe that it's almost time for you to go." I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. "I know. It feels like we've only just started to explore what we have. I never expected to feel so connected to you, and now it's hard to imagine being apart." Luke's expression softened, and he reached across the table to take my hand. "I feel the same way. I've never met anyone like you, and I don't want this to be the end of our story. I want us to keep this connection alive, no matter where life takes us." I squeezed his hand, my heart swelling with a mixture of hope and sadness. "I want that too, Luke. I want to stay in touch, to see each other as often as we can. I believe our connection is strong enough to overcome any distance." Luke's eyes sparkled with determination. "We'll make it work. We'll find ways to visit each other, to keep the spark alive. Our love is worth fighting for." The sincerity in his voice gave me the strength I needed to face the upcoming goodbye. We had already overcome so much together, and I was confident that we could handle whatever came next. As we finished our meal, we both knew that this was not just a farewell, but a transition to a new phase of our relationship. After breakfast, Luke and I decided to take one last walk through the snow-covered grounds. The crisp air was invigorating, and the beauty of the winter landscape seemed to mirror the depth of our feelings for each other. We strolled hand in hand, savoring the final moments we had together. At the edge of the lodge, where the snow-covered trail met the open expanse of the resort, we paused to take in the view. The mountains stood majestically in the distance, their snow-capped peaks glistening in the sunlight. "I'll never forget this place," I said softly, my voice tinged with emotion. "It's been magical, and it's given me so much more than I could have imagined." Luke pulled me into a warm embrace. His touch was reassuring and gentle. "I'll never forget it either. Meeting you here has been one of the best things that's ever happened to me." We stood there for a moment, holding each other, letting the reality of our separation sink in. The snowflakes that fell gently around us seemed to be a symbol of the fleeting but precious moments we had shared. As we broke the embrace, Luke took my hands in his once more. "Amelia, I want you to know that even though we're parting ways for now, this isn't a goodbye forever. It's just a new beginning for us. We've built something real and beautiful, and I believe that we can make it work, no matter the distance." I nodded, feeling a sense of hope rise within me. "I believe that too, Luke. We have something special, and I'm willing to fight for it. Let's promise to stay in touch, to see each other as often as we can, and to keep building on what we have." Luke smiled, his eyes reflecting both sadness and hope. "Absolutely. We'll make it work. We'll find ways to stay connected and to keep our relationship strong. I'm committed to making this work, no matter what." With a final kiss and promises to stay in touch, we embraced one last time. The warmth of his embrace and the sincerity of his words gave me the strength to face the future with optimism. As I turned to leave, I glanced back one last time, taking in the sight of Luke standing there, watching me with a hopeful smile. The drive away from the resort was filled with mixed emotions. The snow-covered landscape gradually faded from view, but the memories of our time together remained vivid in my mind. I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the healing and connection I had experienced, and I was excited about the future we had promised each other. As I looked ahead, I knew that while the physical distance between us would be a challenge, the bond we had created was strong enough to endure. Our love had been tested in the unique environment of the resort, and it had emerged even stronger. With each mile that brought me closer to home, I felt a renewed sense of purpose and excitement. This was not an ending, but a new beginning, a chance to build on what we had started and to face the future together, no matter the obstacles. As I drove into the sunset, the sky painted with hues of pink and orange, I couldn't help but smile, knowing that the journey ahead would be filled with both challenges and opportunities. With Luke by my side, even if only in spirit for now, I was ready to embrace whatever the future held.